Welcome back in, everybody. We're at John and Molly's today in beautiful East Hampton Township, New Jersey. This is the Zach Gelb Show, and we're powered today by Corona Light, as we are each and every Thursday on the road. We broadcast through the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. Time right now in those Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios, 4:16. Hockey returned last night. You have the Rangers and Islanders in action tonight. Also, the New Jersey Devils. If you are a Flyers fan, you have to wait until tomorrow as the Flyers start their 2016-2017 campaign on the West Coast against the LA Kings. Now joining us, my favorite person to talk Flyers hockey with, and that's Coatesy, Steve Coates, who is the Flyers radio analyst on 97.5 The Fanatic. Coatesy, welcome back to another hockey season. Appreciate the time, and how are you today, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing really, really well. I'm actually, I see that you're on location. I'm on location here in the Santa Monica Pier here in L.A., so just getting ready to start tomorrow night.
How's the weather out there? Because it's starting to rain here.
Absolutely gorgeous. Probably about 75 degrees. People are out walking. It's just a great day here on the beach.
Is it as gorgeous as the performance that Auston Matthews had last night? What a performance from the rookie.
Well, I'll tell you what, is that scary? I mean, just think about that's obviously a National Hockey League record, 4 goals in his first game as a professional hockey player. But the way he did it is just scary how good he is. And it's going to be interesting to see McDavid piling up some numbers yesterday in Edmonton. All these young players are really something to watch, which is only obviously good for the game of hockey.
Matthews, I was so impressed last night. First 3 shots, gets 3 goals, ends up tallying 4 goals on the stat sheet last night. His team still could not find the way to win. Maybe he could have scored a 5th one, Coatesy, but it seems like USA Hockey, it's in good hands now.
Yeah, I truly believe that. And, you know, I had an opportunity to MC and do a broadcast of the younger USA players, the under 18s that are going to be eligible for the draft next year. It was a couple of weeks ago. And, boy, I'll tell you what, these kids can absolutely fly. If you can't skate anymore, you're not going to play in the National Hockey League. And you take a look at McDavid, you take a look at Matthews, you take a look at Eichel in Buffalo. They all have that thing in common, and that's skating.
No question about that. Steve Coates joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Flyers with their 50th anniversary, but it's their first season starting without the legendary owner and founder of the Philadelphia Flyers in Ed Snyder. You knew Mr. Snyder very well. Is it bizarre for you starting a hockey season without the legendary Ed Snyder?
It's actually it's a very sad thing. You know, just walking into the building during one of the preseason games, and I looked at where it said Snyder in the parking spot, and, you know, it's sad. I mean, when you think about the fact that a gentleman like Ed Snyder took an opportunity in 1967, he invested $2 million, which was a heck of a lot of money then, to take a chance on a game that a lot of people in Philadelphia weren't familiar with, and he turned that into his fortune. In other words, he built everything he had from that hockey team. That tells you how good he was at what he did. He developed a brand, he built off it, he got a network off of it, he just kept building. And it's sad that in our 50th anniversary, to celebrate that first year in the National Hockey League, that he's not here after passing this year. So it's kind of surreal, but at the same time, knowing him and knowing what he did is something special in my life.
And you know he'd be smiling if he was still here today as the hockey season does start. It's also fitting that they do start this campaign on the West Coast because the Flyers last year in either January or February, the last time that organization as a whole saw Mr. Snyder was on the West Coast when they did visit him and take that one final team picture with Mr. Snyder. You knew him very well. I talked to one of his closest confidants in Lou Scheinfeld. He gave me some tremendous stories after Mr. Snyder passed away. How would you remember him? What are some memories that come to mind when you hear the name of Ed Snyder?
Well, I think that Mr. Snyder, everybody always, you know, we always call him Mr. Snyder. There's no two ways about it. I mean, there's only a few guys, a handful of guys in the years that I've been with the Flyers that called him Ed. But he was a great guy. Obviously, when it was business, it was business. That's the way it was going to be. But when you take a look at socially, if you go out with him socially, he was just one of the guys. He just loved to have a good time, loved to talk hockey, and those are all things that are important.
And they're definitely going to continue to remember him. The best way to honor his legacy is to put together some wins because you know better than anyone, Mr. Snyder wanted to see this team win and reach their fullest potential. So this team's been around. It's going to be their 50th year. What are some of your favorite memories of Flyers hockey?
Well, I think when you take a look at the Flyers and their brand, we've had some real good people. Very, very rarely did we have guys who say, wow, I wish we didn't have that player. I mean, we've had some really good people, which is very special to me over my career. But when you take a look at the Flyers, there's so many different stories. There's no two ways about it. But I want to tell you, it's interesting. Mr. Snyder, he won 2 cups, 73, 74, 74, 75. And everybody says, well, you haven't won a cup then. Well, since then, if you take a look at the Philadelphia Flyers history, since 1967, when they became members of the National Hockey League, they've been to more Stanley Cup finals than anybody except the Montreal Canadiens. In addition, since 1967, they have the second best winning percentage. So that tells you about the logo and all the different things that go into being a successful franchise over that time period, where they always had the same thing in common. You worried about the logo. You did what you had to do to win for the logo. And I just think that that's my memory about, like, if we started getting into all the different stories in the 36 years of my broadcast, we might be here for a couple of days.
A lot of Coatesy corners, right?
Oh, a lot of Coatesy corners. I'm still doing them on the web, and we do about one a month. We have some fun, and the players, that's what makes it. The players, the people, the fans want to see the players having fun and not in that work mode, and that's what makes it a lot of fun.
I was watching one today in some preparation for this interview, and I saw you dressing up as in a disguise last year, pretending to be a season ticket holder. That was awesome, Coatesy. That was great acting.
Oh yeah, I went and Danny Briere didn't know who I was.
Yeah. You had the mustache. It was great. Steve Coates joins us. Let's get to this youth movement. Everyone was impressed with Gostisbehere last year. He really captivated this city and completely changed the complexion of the Flyers last year. Now you have 2 youngsters in Provorov and Konecny. What do you like about these 2 youngsters, and what are your expectations for them for this season?
Well, I think that Provorov really paid off what everybody talked about. I mean, he was the best junior defenseman last year, and he's been absolutely stellar in the preseason, and he just does all the right things, has a great anticipation, and has really, really got great hockey sense. And I think Konecny is the same way. Konecny, I didn't think that he'd be cracking the lineup because Hexy always likes to send people to the minors and let them grow both mentally and physically. But this guy's been the real deal. I mean, he's been on every line. He played all 3 positions in training camp. He led us in scoring. So how do you leave him off the roster if he's leading in scoring after the preseason? Brings a lot of knowledge and really has a great insight to where to go. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he takes advantage of his ability to be able to move to the good areas. He's not worried about going to the dirty areas, and I think he's going to be an exciting player for the fans to watch.
I like the coach, and Dave Hakstol had a very impressive year number 1. We'll see what he does in year number 2. But how much of an advantage is it to have a coach that is able to connect so greatly with those younger players, doing it for that long time when he was at North Dakota?
Well, I think Dave Hakstol just has a great knowledge for the game. And if you've noticed his track record, he did it again last year. They start a little slow, but they always finish at the time where you need to finish good. And so that's what, he uses the season to make his team better, to make them understand how to play his system. And as you practice it day after day after day, then sooner or later it's going to rub off. And I think that that's what, Dave Hakstol does. He does it, not a yeller and screamer, not a guy jumps up and down. He just comes to work and treats everybody the same, and he's been very effective. And I just think that he's going to be around a long time because that's how good a coach he is.
When a player comes on the scene and has a really good year number 1, there's always those fans that are apprehensive that he's going to be able to replicate those numbers in year number 2. I don't believe that will be an issue for one Shane Gostisbehere, and I don't believe he'll have a sophomore slump. So what do you expect this year out of Ghost? Because last year, Coatesy, you know it better than anyone, he was so brilliant.
He was the trigger point. And, he wouldn't have been with us last year if it hadn't been for injuries. And he took advantage of it. He played absolutely scary good, came up with big goals, made the team feel better about themselves. A team, when you're in a locker room, they know exactly how good they are. And then all of a sudden you get a player like Gostisbehere, all of a sudden you're making your team better. And I think that's what's going to happen with Provorov and Konecny. Ghost, I think, has got nowhere else but to go up. I mean, what he's done at the college level, what he did last year in his rookie year to finish second in the rookie scoring, and actually rookie voting, I'm sorry, it's just scary. So he's only got everything but up in front of him. I think he's got to be a little bit more attentive to the defensive part of the game. But outside of that, I think it's just a growth situation with him.
You know, the defense with the Flyers is always a big thing for this team, and it hasn't been great over the last few years. Where's your concern level with the defensive play of the Philadelphia Flyers as we get ready to enter this season?
I really don't have a concern at this point. I've got a concern that we have Gudas out for 6 games. That's not going to but help it. We have 7 veterans coming back plus Provorov. So I think that's a good thing. And then we're going to carry 8 defensemen all year? I have no clue. But I think that when you have the veteran leadership back there, you got Mark Streit, and everybody of them have something in common, except for, well, even Gudas has a good first pass coming out of the zone. But you got the likes of Streit, Del Zotto, and missing Del Zotto is not going to help either. I mean, missing Del Zotto for a month is huge. So you have those holes, but thinking about having holes like that, you fill in with Provorov, you got Manning, you got all these guys that are there to help. So I don't really have any worries about it. I like the defense and their ability to be able to move the puck. That is so important in the game now, and every one of them have that ability.
Last year you saw at times Mason have his struggles. You saw Neuwirth have his struggles. At the end of the year, it was Neuwirth who was the better goaltender. Do you have a preference out of the two with the goalies in Mason and Neuwirth?
No, I think that both of them have great abilities. I think that when you look at the tandem of Mason and Neuwirth, I don't think that there's a better tandem in the National Hockey League right now. I really, truly believe that. And I don't know if they're very tight-lipped about that, but I think you're going to see them platoon. I think they'll go every other night. I would probably guarantee that tomorrow night it'll be Mason and Saturday it'll be Neuwirth, just because analytics tell you got to play your second goalie after the first goalie. But I would think that Mason gets the start tomorrow and Neuwirth get the one on Saturday in the back-to-back, and I think that as time goes on, the number of permutations and combinations of lines and goaltenders and all that throughout the season is unbelievable. So right now, let's go with 2, and we'll work it out as the season goes on.
How will they handle both of those players if one player is getting a little bit more of the starts at one time during the season because Hakstol is going with the hot hand? How do you believe those players will bounce off each other in the net and really just handle their emotions when they're both clearly 2 great competitors?
Well, I would think that it's no different than whether you're on the power play or you're on the penalty kill. If you perform, you're going to be in there. So I would imagine that whoever plays the best is going to get more of the workload, and it goes back and forth probably during the year.
I hate to see Quick go down just because he's such a really good player, but the Flyers do dodge a bullet for game number 1. Zakhoff last year had a few starts. I think it was 2 starts against the Rangers in that playoff round for the Penguins and went 1-1. So what stands out to you about the goalie that will be in net tomorrow for the Kings and Jeff Zakhoff?
I can honestly tell you that I didn't even look at him yet. I mean, I was preparing for Quick. Quick's got hurt last night, and I'll do a little look tomorrow when I'm at the morning skate. But I don't know enough now about him to talk about it. But I think it's an advantage, obviously, for the Flyers playing in their home opener here, not having their number one and one of the top goalies in the National Hockey League being Jonathan Quick, and having him out of the lineup.
Definitely a key. He's going to get some quick shots for the Flyers and generate that offense. One player that did not have a great year last year was Jake Voracek, to say that by any stretch. Do you expect Jake to bounce back this year?
If you watch Jake in the preseason, he is ready. You can always tell when Jake is up on his skates and he just seems like he's just darting around, and that's when he's at his best. And I think that injury kind of held him back a little bit. When he came back, he wasn't himself. But, yeah, I think he's going to be ready to go. Really going to have a good year.
So give me some strengths, give me some weaknesses when you look at this team from an offensive perspective.
Well, I think you still got I think you still could use more scoring, but, you got to have Braden Shen come to play. He's going to miss the first 3 games. You got to have Drew have another great year. You got to pray not pray, but I think Konechny being up on that second line, you got to expect your 2 top lines to be able to produce. So you got, Voracek on that second line and Couturier in the middle. And Simmons is going to score his 30 goals. So this is what you need. You need those guys to perform. That's what the big thing is. We just talked about basketball, not basketball. We talked about the forwards, the defense, and the goalies. And basically what we just need is the people to perform. That's the thing you need to have happen. And you got to stay healthy.
So let me ask you this, because last year it was a surprise year to me for the Flyers. I didn't expect them to make the playoffs. They end up making the playoffs and giving Washington a little run, getting to a Game 6, and I like the resiliency from the Flyers in that series. What are the realistic expectations this year for the Flyers as someone that is there on a daily basis?
I think it's a playoff team. But you know, it's the other way you got to look at it is you got to look at around, the conference and take a look at the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. The Panthers are going to be an awful lot better. You got the Washington Capitals. All these teams are going to be better. So the Flyers need to be better. And goaltending, it's all the same thing every year. Goaltending, if the goaltending's good, they'll be a playoff team.
Also, not only the conference, also their division, too, because teams like the Devils, they get better, adding Hall. The Islanders, they did lose some pieces, but they added Andrew Ladd. And the Rangers, they're always in it with Henrik Lundqvist. That division, it's no easy one, Coatesy. That's a really tough division when I take a look at it.
Oh, no, it's hard. I mean, I didn't even bring up the Pittsburgh Penguins because that's a given. So, you know, and I don't know how good the Rangers are. I mean, I think that they got the better of that trade with Ottawa. But, you know, in the long run, you got to win hockey games. And parity is definitely here in the National Hockey League. So we can prognosticate all we want, but I've always said we play for fun till Christmas, and then we'll decide what happens after then.
Well, Coatesy, when we have to discuss and talk with you after Christmas, it's going to be a little bit colder, so enjoy that weather out there in California. Appreciate the time today, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care, all right?
Thanks so much. We'll do. There's Steve Coates, the Flyers radio analyst, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920. The Jersey Flyers in action tomorrow against the LA Kings, and very optimistic from Coatesy. Does not surprise me. This is a Flyers team that you should have that optimistic feeling because they did surprise you last year. Now the question is, you have the solid foundation with Hakstol and Hakstol. You have Shane Gostisbehere. You added more younger guys this year in Provorov and Konecny to complement the veterans of a Wayne Simmons, who is such an exceptional player. Voracek needs to bounce back. You have Claude Giroux, the captain. You have the questions at goaltender. But you have a group that, yes, the Eastern Conference is very good. The Metropolitan Division is very good. This should be a team, though, that is competing for the playoffs. I'm not saying they are going to be winning the Metropolitan Division because still, teams like the Capitals and the Penguins, they are the lead dogs in this division. And also the conference, when you factor in Tampa Bay as well, those are your three lead teams. Florida will also be good as well. So you have this division, though. It would not surprise me if you have a team that you expect to get in the playoffs, maybe like a Flyers, maybe like a Rangers, that don't make the playoffs just because of this rigorous division and also the rigorous conference. But if you're a Flyers fan, the expectation this year, be a 6, be a 7 seed, I think that could happen. Now, if you're a 6, that factors into the playoff system of 2-3 in the division. You'd be playing a divisional team, and if you're 7 or 8, you're playing one of the divisional winners. But still, this is a Flyers team that now having Shane Gostisbehere for a full year, having some of these younger guys as well, as long as they can get solid goaltending, and I believe it's imperative that either Mason or Neuwirth distance themselves from one another and be that lead dog. Because Mason, and that's why I asked the question with Mason and Neuwirth and how they'll deal with handling the situation if one player is getting more reps than the other in the starting ice time. They're going to go with Mason from the start because of his contract. At the end of last year, though, Neuwirth was outplaying Mason. If that happens again, Mason may say all the right things, because hockey players always say the right things, but how does Mason react to that if there is a good portion of the season where he's struggling Neuwirth in net? That is something to monitor and something to watch. But the Flyers are in good hands because of the leadership that they have. Even though they're without their owner, Snyder, who we all know passed away, and they'll continue to honor him this year in the 50th anniversary of the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers are in good hands because they have good leadership with Ron Hakstol and Dave Hakstol. Will it translate into a playoff team this year? Time will tell. Me personally, I believe the Flyers will be a playoff team. But they do face a LA team that's going to be without Jonathan Quick. He got injured last night. Jeff Zakoff, who played against the New York Rangers in the playoffs last year, split the first 2 games. He will be in net tomorrow night for Flyers and Kings, and you can listen to Steve Coates on the Flyers Radio Network. This is the Zach Gelb Show, though. Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. We come to you today from John and Molly's in beautiful East Hampton Township, New Jersey. We'll take a quick break, and when we get back, I have to get into the No Fun League, the National Football League. How can you celebrate? We'll talk about that next on the Zach Gelb Show from John and Molly's, powered by Corona Light.